Well, a very warm welcome into this latest episode of the HuddleUK podcast. I said in the last episode that football is back. Well, now it really is back. All 32 teams have played. We've got plenty of overreactions. I've seen them all on social media. It's been good fun. I'm the host, as always, Philip Marsh. And this week, I'm staying local. I'm staying true to my roots. I'm joined by the boys from NFL Cymru, Dyfed, Cynan and Guto Williams. Shemai boys, sit OT?
Noswaith Phil. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Noswaith or Bryn Houndar for when this episode comes out tomorrow afternoon. I can see you guys are repping your teams. I wanted to start there, not to start the episode on a sour note or a down note. But as a Chargers fan, I'll get to my gleefulness in a moment. We'll start with the Falcons, I guess, because the Falcons game, Guto, it's not going to be as disappointing as the Dolphins game because there were chances to win it, weren't there? I know I've seen you put on social media, we need to start talking about Younghoe Koo. That's going to be one of the big talking points, isn't it, from the Falcons game? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I tweeted after the game that we need to have a serious conversation about Younghoe Koo. 2 seasons ago, he was probably a top 3 kicker in the league. Even last season, he started to deteriorate a little bit. He was losing, we lost games because of a final kick. It was a disappointing loss, but it's not the end of the world. We played really well. I think Michael Penix, he's a future of the Falcons for sure. Bijan Robinson doing his thing, obviously. Jake London had a decent game, but obviously we missed Darnell Mooney as well, which we're a big fan of. But Younghoe Koo, I don't know what's happened to him. I think we need a bit more competition in the kicking range. We've got, I think a couple of players have been doing some trials this week, but we seriously need some more competition for Younghoe Koo. It was a disappointing loss in the end. I was watching the whole game. I would have preferred if it went to overtime, but we had a chance to win it as well. We had a chance to, I think the Emeka Egbuka, the second touchdown, which, by the way, Egbuka, he had a terrific game, a brilliant rookie. I said at the beginning that I was afraid of that wide receiver room when they drafted him. It's ridiculous. He had a terrific game, but we could have avoided that touchdown as well. So a lot of questions in that game, unfortunately, but Younghoe Koo, we need more competition in our team. I think somebody else needs to step up and take the kicking range for him.
On the plus side for you guys, because you mentioned Drake London and Darnell Mooney, you said that you're both fans. Are you a fan as well, David? Do you like Darnell Mooney?
Well, I think echoing what Guto said, and especially about Darnell Mooney, is I went back actually to look at some Falcons tape of last year, and I think it came to light when I was watching QB on Netflix when they were following Kirk Cousins, and there was just tape and game after game of Darnell Mooney making game-changing plays, either in overtime, fourth quarter, putting the Falcons ahead. And I'm like, how did I miss this? It seems like a lot of us missed this as well. He's a big part. He's obviously he's not wide receiver 1, but I'm not sure if you guys have heard the news. I think it was announced half an hour ago that Drake London and Darnell Mooney are good to go. Which, because I was a little bit worried that Drake London was going to be injured and he was going to be out this weekend. I completely get it what you say, Guto, about Younghoe Koo, because unfortunately I happened to draft him in my fantasy as well. So yeah, that was a bad move. But the defense seems a lot better in year 2 under Raheem, and ultimately, like I said, they had opportunities there to pick him off, but like you said, it came down. It's a shame that it came down to a missed field goal, and it wasn't even that long, wasn't it? Sorry to rub it in, but it was like a 45-yard field goal, I think, as well.
Any kicker could do that. So
yeah, that's the thing with nowadays NFL, isn't it? I remember when I started watching it, if you were going for a 50-yard field goal, the commentary and everyone was like, oh wow, 50 yards. And last night on Thursday Night Football, we're recording this on Friday, obviously this episode comes out on Saturday, but on Thursday Night Football watching it, there was 2 kicks in a row that came off the upright, and they were from like 48 and 52. And the commentary was sort of talking about as if you'd missed a penalty in soccer and football.
Yeah.
Like they're given nowadays. And it is very strange. I want to just quickly echo your point. I think Darnell Mooney's great. It was only 8 yards off 1,000 last year. I think he'll be really important to have him back. I didn't watch the game in its entirety. So how did the two first round rookies, because obviously the big talking point with the Falcons is often the draft. Every year they seem to do something which makes my head explode. I dread to think how you feel watching them. But James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, what was their sort of intro like?
Yeah, I was very impressed with Jalen Walker, and I think a lot of the analysts, they gave high praises to them as well. So I was very impressed with them. I think they'll be really good this season. I think we're going to have a good season with them, as long as they all stay fit, obviously. But I was quite happy with them. It's filled a hole for the players that we've left and the players that we lost during the free agency. But yeah, no, very impressed with them. And just a quick note on Darnell Mooney as well. It's a massive boost for us to have Darnell Mooney back. We've got a big game this weekend, Sunday night, Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be a very difficult game, but having Darnell Mooney in there is a massive boost for us. So my confidence is a little bit higher than it was after the loss against the Bucks. But no, it's going to be an interesting game on Sunday night for us.
And we'll get to that game. You say confidence is high. To go full
slightly higher.
Well, to go full flip side though, Dyfed, the Dolphins. Look, we all have seen Daniel Jones play football for years, and I think at times he's been harshly criticised, sometimes fairly, but I think the media, and he's sort of become a bit of a football meme in that the moment he does wrong, people immediately jump on his back, and I don't think he's that bad. And I don't think it didn't come as a massive surprise to me that he beat Anthony Richardson in camp for the starting job. That being said, the Dolphins defense made him look like Tom Brady in his prime on Sunday. The first time in, I think it was 40 years, that a team has scored on every offensive possession. There was another stat as well. Now, he's the first player, I think, to get 2 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown on his first game for a team since he did it himself for the Giants. So what was going through your head watching that as a Dolphins fan? I don't have any allegiance to the Dolphins, so part of me just wanted to laugh, but it can't have been fun on your end of things.
So listen, obviously, I'm kind of like stuck in a place as a Dolphins fan, as we've been, unfortunately, for the last 25 years. That was the last time, by the way, that we won a playoff game. And so we're one of the worst franchise in American sports at the moment. But anyway, apart from that, with Daniel Jones, I'm not sure what you saw on Sunday was actually Daniel Jones in a really good system. Does it really come to show how bad of a system or how bad a situation he was with the Giants? And I know that he went to the playoffs 1 year, and I think it was in his second year. But, you know, to have a decent, if not a really, really above average offensive line, clearly a really, really good play caller. I thought the Dolphins were outfought, outcoached massively. And look, during the last week or so, they've been the laughing stock of the NFL. For me, as an avid supporter, that was probably one of the most embarrassing displays that I've seen, and I've been watching the Dolphins for 20 years. However, the one thing that I'll say is I've been listening to the beat writers, the Dolphins beat writers this week, and I mean, how do you react from that? The only thing that they've said is that was an anomaly. That is not the team that they've been seeing in training camp or in preseason. So the problem is, Tua, first of all, is creating a little bit of a pattern here. When he throws one interception, the second and the third comes pretty quickly within the same game. I think he's only behind Trevor Lawrence. I think he's thrown 7 multiple interception games in the last 2 or 3 seasons, which is very, very worrying. And Xavier Howard, he was with the Dolphins for 5 or 6 years. He signed for the Colts 3 weeks ago, and he said post game, if you take away Tua's first read, you'll make him panic, and that's exactly what we saw. if I'm honest with you, I don't know if Tyreek Hill is ever going to be Tyreek Hill anymore. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons. He can't seem to get 100%. Obviously, we've heard during the week that there's another problem off the field with domestic abuse with his former partner or former wife now. So I don't know if there's going to be an upcoming suspension. Obviously, it depends what happens when the NFL investigates. But and the other thing that I'm going to finish with this, Phil, is on Monday, after they flew home from Indianapolis, they held a players only meeting in Miami. So a lot of former players have told me when that happens within a franchise, that is the kiss of death for either the GM or the head coach, Mike McDaniel. So like I said, we've got Patriots at home on Sunday, short week away to Buffalo, and then we're back against the Jets. If the Dolphins go 0-4, I think we have to pull the plug.
Yeah, I think Mike McDaniel, well, one of my good friends messaged me after the game saying, is he a fraud? Because we all loved what we saw at the start with all the jet sweeps, all the motions. Has it just run its course? The Dolphins writer for HuddleUK website described it as unprepared, uninspired, and unacceptable. And I think, in 3 words, summed up the game perfectly. You mentioned that the consecutive interceptions. Did you see after the game as well? He was asked about this in the press conference. Someone said to him, when you get one, they come in batches. And what staggers me is he clearly isn't aware of this. Because he said to the guy, I can't remember how he phrased it, but he basically said, I don't like what you're saying about batches. But it's there in black and white, isn't it? It is so obvious. I know you're not a fan, Guto, but do you see any way back for them? I don't like, everyone wants to overreact in the first week, but is this the season done already for Miami?
Well, there's some worrying signs already, isn't there? And obviously the next Dyfed's already worried about being 0-4 with the divisions games coming up. So it's worrying times. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of the highlights of the game, but from what I've read, it's all signs of bad news. And with what Dyfed said with the players meeting, obviously that's the nail of the coffin. So I think we'll make that decision once the next 4 games comes up. We'll see what position the Miami Dolphins are in. But it doesn't look good at the moment. And I'm sorry to say, Dyfed, but it's probably all downhill from here.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And I don't want to bang on too much about my team. I do try and stay reasonably neutral where possible. But just so we've covered the 3 of ours, I'll just ask you guys for your take on that. It was great. I think it's great for the NFL to do all the international games. It seemed like a good crowd again in Brazil, and it was pleasing to see that people weren't slipping everywhere like they were when it was the Packers-Eagles last year. Yeah. But my one take is I think that's potentially Justin Herbert's best game in a Chargers jersey.
Yeah.
Just for professionalism, not in terms of yards or touchdowns or quarterback rate, but game management. That was as inspiring as a fan as I've seen. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's beating the Jets, not the Jets, the Chiefs is one thing. But it was a very impressive win for the Chargers, and I like Justin Herbert. I think he just needs that little bit. He needs to show a little bit more. Obviously, I agree with you. That was his best game. I've got a question for Dyfed quickly. Dyfed mentioned in our previous episode of the NFL Cymru podcast that the Chargers, before the game, that Chargers doesn't excite him. Do the Chargers excite you now, Dyfed?
Well, obviously, I have to say yes. I mean, look, look, I was the thing that caught me off guard especially with a game plan for the Chargers. I didn't expect them to be that aggressive, especially throwing downfield. I've always thought as a Harbaugh team, their bread and butter is smash mouth football. Obviously, there was a game plan outside of that. My only worry, Phil, is that type of is that type of game plan, i.e., Herbert throwing outside the numbers, and especially him scrambling as much. I'm not sure how you felt as a Chargers fan, because I'm not sure if the best thing for Justin Herbert is to try and turn himself into a mini Josh Allen, if you know what I mean, because I'm just a little bit worried that he's going to get clattered one day and he's going to be a target now. And the other option would say is it was a brilliant win, and like I said, a brilliant strategy to come up with the Chiefs. I was quite I didn't expect the Chiefs defense to be so open and so poor at times. The only other thing I'd say is the wide receiver room going to be able to sustain that for the rest of the season?
I think to go to the first point you make, and I'll get onto the wide receivers after. Yeah, there is a worry when you see Justin Herbert go out, start scrambling. But I think even if you're a Bills fan and you see Josh Allen lowering his shoulder into contact, there is, anytime it's your quarterback, your star player, you are going to have that just a bit of a wince. But Justin Herbert's massive. I think because he looks a bit young and because he has sort of like a bit of a baby face, people just sort of like don't realize how much of a physical monster he is. So his injury history does make me concerned, but some of the times he was running, and we've seen glimpses of it. There was the one that went sort of viral last year where they, from about 7 yards out, the play design was QB run, and he's running off, and Jim Harbaugh's going, "That's my guy. That's a beast. He's a beast." And all the Chargers players are laughing on the sidelines. So, do I want to see him doing that 10 times a game? No, but I think it's good to have that. We've never had that as a weapon. In all my years of watching, it's either been Phil Rivers or Justin Herbert. So I think it's nice to have those options. For the wide receiver room, I think a lot of people's criticism of Justin Herbert over the years has been, one of my favorite content creators calls him if man. And a lot of one of the main ifs has always been, if he has a wide receiver room, he'll be good. And other than the year where they had Keenan, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer, granted they had them all, but for only 2 of the games of the season were all 3 fit. Now they have a bit of what feels like a bit of depth. Even if one of them went down, they've got a second-round rookie in Trey Harris, who hardly saw the field in Brazil. He didn't impress much in training camp, granted, but QJ looked like the first-round wide receiver we've wanted him to be. And he gets a bit like Daniel Jones. I think he's become a bit of a meme in that when he drops a pass, it's really easy to jump on him. But nobody says, well, he got 8 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to talk about that part. He got 2 in Brazil. Lad McConkey's great. And Keenan Allen, well, I'll hold my hands up and say I thought there was a chance after last year at the Bears even that he would have taken a decline at 31 years old. But he just looked as good as he's ever looked against the Chiefs. So lots of reasons to be positive. And this might be me overreacting, and it probably is. But it leads me on to what my next question for you guys would be is, as a collective, I want to see if we can come up with our power rankings, not the 1 through 32. Obviously, we'd be here all day arguing that, but the top 5, because I've seen, so the NFL's official one had the Chargers in 13th, and to my amazement, it was the biggest criticism of it on all social medias because the Chiefs were in 5th, and everyone was going, well, how can you possibly say that if you've watched that game in Brazil? So would you both agree with me in that the Eagles would still have to be top as the defending champions?
Top 5, definitely.
Top 5.
In terms of the top spot, is questionable in respect.
So let's work out our top 5. Would we all agree that the Bills are in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Would we agree the Eagles are in there?
Yes.
Yep.
I think after last night, I don't think there's any debating the Packers are in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
And then this is where it gets more interesting. I would have the Ravens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ravens.
Yes. Even though they lost.
Despite the loss.
Despite the loss, yeah. They have an incredible ability to throw games away later on, but they are still the top 5 team. Then this is where it gets interesting, is who the 5th team is. So, David, I'll go to you first to give your pick and your justification. We'll all give our team, and then we'll see if we can come up with a collective decision.
Well, after week one, I mean, surely you'd have to say the Chargers, wouldn't you? Because I know it's a big leap because they've beaten the Chiefs, and I know Justin Herbert's record against the Chiefs isn't very good. I think that was only his second victory ever against the Chiefs, I believe.
Correct.
Another thing on the Chargers that I was very impressed with, Joe Alt. He looks the real deal, doesn't he? And your O-line, even without Rashawn Slater, looks solid as a brick wall. And I was very impressed with your defense as well. So if you counter it like that, the only other team that really comes to mind with me, was I guess I'm going with previous rankings would have been Detroit, but they didn't look very. They looked out of sorts, especially on offense up in Lambeau on Sunday. So I think why not put the Chargers there?
Interesting. Guto?
I'm torn between two teams here. We mentioned is it too early to put Tampa Bay in top 5? Maybe it is.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't a much convincing win against the Falcons, but it was a result that could have gone either way. I have to mention the Steelers, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers going back to New York to play against the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers played absolutely brilliantly in that game. I think he did really, really, really well. And obviously the wide receivers as well. I would pick Steelers over the Tampa Bay. But yeah, for me, it's between the Steelers and the Chargers.
I think for me, and this is purely from a point of PTSD, I would still put the Kansas City Chiefs there, and I wouldn't have it like the NFL's ranking where the Chargers are down in 13th. For me, they would be 6th or 7th, and I agree with Guto. I think the Bucks are there or thereabout. I also really like the Rams. I think they're real dark horses this year. If Stafford can stay healthy, Booker and Adams and Kyron Williams, the defense looks great as well, but. Yeah, for me, it still has to be the Chiefs. One game, as much as I want to overreact, and you know, it was great. It was a brilliant win for the Chargers, but this team always seemed to find a way to win. And, you know, they've been to the last 3 Super Bowls, 4 of the last 5. It might even be 5 of the last 6. So I'm not quite ready myself to say the Chargers are 5th. Tom Brady put the Chargers 6th, and that scared me in his power rankings. So, I don't think we're going to come to a consensus, but I think it's between the teams we've said.
Yeah.
On the flip side, who would be the bottom 5? So again, I think we can all agree on the Saints.
Yeah.
The Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would we all agree on the Panthers?
Yes.
Yes.
Would we all agree on the Dolphins?
Absolutely. 30. I've seen many on the NFL rankings. They're 32, so you have to put them there, especially after last week. 100%.
And then again, I think the last one there is a lot of interesting ones. I think most people would go for the Giants.
Yeah.
I personally, I'd say it's very close, and I understand why lots of people would say the Giants. For me, I would lean Titans just at this point over the Giants, just because I think that the Titans look okay in lots of places, but that Giants defensive front is arguably as good as any team, and I think it will win them games. I think they'll upset teams along the way, particularly teams that don't have a good O-line. I think they'll just absolutely just walk over them in the trenches. So for me, the Giants would be one above. Cam Ward didn't do much to impress me on his debut, and I know the Broncos defense are excellent.
Yeah.
That does have to be said. That's as tough a start, really, in terms of a defense that you can come up against. But what would you say, David? Would you say Giants, or Jets are another team people would put down there?
Do you know what? I thought the Jets offense looked really, really good, which scares me to the core as a Dolphins fan, obviously. Do you know what? The only thing that I'd come up with is the only team that doesn't quite fit right for me there is Cleveland. I thought they played the Bengals really, really close, you know. Don't get me wrong, you know, Flacco wasn't lighting their secondary up, and we have to remember as well, the Bengals defense are pretty poor. I mean, they've done nothing to address this from last season. Me and Guto have been going absolutely crazy all over the summer. They've been spending all this, and I get it, on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and, trying to get their O-line in place. And that went to tatters as well, because Myles Garrett was literally getting through those A-gaps. He was having an afternoon with Burrow. And if I was a Cincinnati fan, I'd be really, really worried for the O-line and definitely for the defense. So I'd probably put Cleveland maybe outside the bottom five, and I would probably include the Titans. I thought Ward was okay. The problem was his receivers were dropping balls right, left, and center, and his O-line was absolutely terrible. He had literally less than 2 seconds in order to get rid of the ball. And the last one would be the Giants. The only thing I have to say is, if we think Mike McDaniel is definitely probably on the hot seat, surely Dable is next in line, don't you think?
I would 100% agree. I think Dable is praying to the gods that, well, at some point in the next, I would say, month, if not 2 months at a stretch, he's going to have to turn to Jackson Dart and Cam Scattergood.
100%.
And if they don't take that team forward, then he's chucked. Absolutely. Guto, who would be your other fifth in the bottom?
Yeah, I immediately thought of the Giants. Obviously, the Commanders are a difficult team, but the way they played that game, they only scored 2 field goals, which, is not good. I believe Russell Wilson has only signed a 1-year contract with the Giants. I won't be surprised if we see Jackson Dart in the next few weeks starting for the Giants in maybe week 4, week 5. And I think that will probably not turn the season in terms of a massive push for the playoffs, but it'll bring a lot of positivity to the Giants. Another team I do want to bring up, this might be a bit of a controversial one, not necessarily bottom 5, but a team that probably didn't show a lot of heart, especially towards the fourth quarter, is the Chicago Bears. To lose the way they did at home against the Vikings, they had a massive lead, and to lose that's the way they did at home in Chicago as well. There's a lot of questions to be asked about that defense.
Yeah, I don't think they're bottom 5 for me, but I
No.
know entirely what you're saying, because JJ McCarthy went from Zach Wilson to Tom Brady in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was remarkable watching that happen. At the end of the third quarter, it was pack up and go back to Minnesota. It looked absolutely over. So I do think JJ McCarthy winning NFC Player of the Week is a bit of a farce.
100%.
Yeah.
Want to throw that out there. That's the NFL scripting, but that, again, good for him. What a comeback. Unbelievable comeback. But best player in the NFC last week? No, not for me by a long shot. Let's move on from week 1 to week 2. We've had one game at the time of this recording. It was the Packers Commanders last night. I stayed up till God knows what hour again to watch that, thinking this is going to be a real back and forth, Jaden versus Jordan. It just wasn't that game. The Packers were, at one point in the third quarter, there was 7 points in it, and I was wondering how, because the Packers were so much better last night. And I know the Commanders will have better games, but after the Lions went to Lambeau Field and looked really poor, now the Commanders have. This Packers team is serious, isn't it? Micah Parsons, and even on the offense, Jaden Reed's gone down with a collarbone injury, which, sucks for them. But even with him down, they're going to put a lot of people on notice this year.
Yeah. We were talking about top 5 earlier. To me, the Green Bay Packers, they're definitely top 2 for me. 100%. I think they're the most exciting team in the NFL as of now. Obviously, we'll have other games on Sunday, but from what we've seen the first 2 games, they're very exciting. Imagine a Green Bay Packers against the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl. How exciting would that be? That would be an immense Super Bowl. Jordan Love.
Puts his head in his hands. They go, not the Bills, not the Bills,
not the Bills. No, especially before they go into their new stadium. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No.
But no, Josh Jacobs there, running back. I thought he had a very excellent day. He scored a touchdown as well. Jordan Love threw 2 touchdowns. We didn't hype Green Bay as much on our podcast during the off season. We have to admit that, Dyfed. But obviously, as of now, I think they're top 2, definitely top 3. But for me, top 2.
Yeah, sorry, Phil, on going on back of that, my decision to put the Packers fourth in their division in my rankings looks a terrible, terrible take at the moment. I'm not going to lie. And the other bold statement that I made, and I'm still going to hold due course to this, is I actually put the Commanders to win the East over the Eagles as well. So I'm still going to hold on to that because I think they are still a quality team. I don't think Jaden Daniels is on its way to a sophomore slump, as they say, for second-year quarterbacks. But like you said, Green Bay are just playing absolutely lights out, violent football at the moment on both sides. Their defense looks nasty, really, really nasty. The only thing, Phil, is I'll say is, I think between now and week 8, the Packers are only going to play one more game in Lambeau.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what type of team they are outside of Lambeau.
Yeah.
It might not look drastically different, but potentially in a different environment, they might. And I'm not quite sure how significant that dislocated shoulder is, because I think he's out indefinitely. I'm not sure if he's out for the year, Jalen Reed, but he's going to be out for at least that's a 6 to 8 week injury at least, I think.
Yeah, I think I read that it's 6 to 8 on the NFL website. I don't think they've ruled him out for the rest of the season. At the time of this recording, anyway, by the time this comes out on Saturday, there might be worse news. On the subject of injuries, there was a horrible moment where Dietrich Wise had his leg trampled during the kick yesterday, so he looks out for the season. And Austin Eckler, I just want to say a moment, because he came on this podcast this summer and was one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever spoken to. And he said that he was aiming to be a top 32 running back this year. I bought into it. I was really there for him, especially when they traded away Brian Robinson. So I really wish him all the best getting better from that Achilles injury. Was not a nice moment. The only, if you're a Washington fan or if you're a fantasy football fan, you're now screaming the name Bill. Bill being what everyone is calling Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who apparently just wants to go by Bill, which I love. He's like, one name, I want to be like Prince and Cher and Pele. Just call me Bill, and I will. He didn't have much involvement last night, but now he's got a chance to really impress with this Commanders team, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. On that, obviously, to be fair, I know we've given our flowers to the Packers defense. They kept McLaurin and Debo especially really, really quiet. One thing that I can't stop thinking about is, how would the Commanders feel watching what Jahan Dotson is doing on the Eagles, and how they traded him away? Because that's one thing that the Commanders don't have at the moment, is a speedster to spread the field. And like I said, I think they look a bit rusty on offense, because coming out the gate, because I don't think they didn't look 100% on offense even in week 1 as well. So I think it might take a couple of weeks for them to kind of hit. But that's what happened to them last year. They just got hot right at the end of the season at the right time, and they made a run into the playoffs. So I'm still going to stand firm that I think they're going to hold themselves. Okay, they might not topple the Eagles, but I trust their coaching at the end of the day.
It's week 2 of the NFL season when Jahan Dotson and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt are the names that are being brought up. I absolutely love it. I had Jahan Dotson in so many dynasty fantasy leagues, and I now have AJ Brown. So I've really hit the bad moments of everything Jahan Dotson. I don't like him. He annoys me. He's an all right player, but every time he catches the ball, I now get irritated. Moving on from Thursday, then there's loads of games on Sunday. We've got two Monday night games as well this week, but loads of games on Sunday, including a repeat of the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs meeting. That's not the only exciting game. I think Lions-Bears, the familiar faces of Ben Johnson going back to play his old team, Detroit, will be a really, really interesting one. Guto, are there any games? I guess it's probably the Super Bowl replay, but are there any games this weekend that you're particularly looking forward to outside of the Falcons?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the Buccaneers are going to do against the Texans. They're away to Houston. Another game I think we should keep an eye on is San Francisco against New Orleans. Brock Purdy is out for 4 to 6 weeks, I believe. So Mac Jones will be taking the role of QB1. Is it Mac Jones? Yeah, Mac Jones.
It is Matt
Will
Jones,
be
yeah.
taking the role of QB1 for the 49ers. So we'll be interested to see how he gets on. Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, division there. We'll see how Russell Wilson does against the Dallas Cowboys. And as you mentioned, I had my eye on Lions and Bears as well. So that's going to be an interesting game. Falcons playing Sunday night, late Sunday night game against the Vikings. I'll try and stay awake for that one as well.
Well, you think you've got to try and stay away. The Chargers Raiders game, which I'll get into in a minute, is a 3 a.m. kickoff, which it's a 10 p.m. kickoff Eastern time.
Yeah.
How being allowed to be a thing, I don't quite know. Anyway, that's definitely. I normally stay up and I plow through. I'm not doing that for a 3 a.m. kickoff. That's going to be nap and wake back up sort of territory. Can I get your predictions? David, I'll start with you on the Super Bowl replay. I think the Eagles. I can't remember how many point favourites they are. I was looking at it up earlier, but they are definitely favoured by a couple points in that way, and understandably so. They should have won the Super Bowl by more. I mean, the scoreline flattered the Chiefs, if anything, in the end. Do you think Jalen Hurts and co get it done again on Sunday?
It's just kind of weird us thinking that the Chiefs are going to start 0-2. To be fair, I mean, the Ravens did exactly the same last season, didn't they? And they finished 12-5. So it is possible. And we have to remember that, Mahomes is playing without two of his top wide receivers. So Worthy's going to be out, I believe. I think he's going to be out. And obviously he's without Rashid Rice at the moment as well. Their running game clearly didn't look good against the Chargers, and neither did their defense as well. And look, Kelsey by now, he's probably a middle of the way tight end in the league by now. So he's kind of no longer the threat that he was. So even though I have ultimately picked the Chiefs because I just can't I just see them pulling it out the bag. I don't know how this is going to be. I think the Eagles are going to have to. They didn't convince me, I have to say, at the opening game against the Cowboys. I thought for a large majority of that game that the Cowboys offense especially were doing whatever they wanted. CeeDee Lamb ran ragged, and if he would have caught a few of those late catches, we might have been talking about the Eagles going in 0-1 as well. So you never know. But look, I think let's just put it out there. I think the Chiefs are going to win. But I think if you're going to ask for a score, I think it's probably going to be something like 24-23 or 24-21, something like that.
I like that you have the same case of PTSD as I do, because you've just basically said the Chiefs are worse in every aspect of the field, but I'm still going to pick them to win, which is what Kansas City has done to us all in the last few years, and it's horrible. Even when it looks like you're going to win, they somehow win. And anyway, Guto, are you part of this Chiefs PTSD club, or do you think the Eagles win?
Yeah, I think they've got. It's going to be weird. See, I can't see them being 0-2. I think they've got, obviously they're playing at home, that home advantage. Arrowhead is a noisy place. So everyone's going to be behind them. I do see them winning. I do. I have thought about it. I do see them winning. I really do. I see this going to be more of a high scoring game than the Reds. I won't be surprised if Kansas City score 30, 31 points to Philadelphia's 24-27. 31-27 is my final score.
That's a big call. Simply because Xavier Worthy, quoting Andy Reid from Friday here, said he has a slim chance he wouldn't shut the door on him playing, but it doesn't look like he's going to play. Obviously, Rashid Rice, as you touched on, is suspended. Interestingly, on the other side of the field, Dallas Goedert has been ruled out for the Eagles. So, I mean, if you've got AJ Brown in fantasy leagues like me, you're hoping, you're praying that, this opens the door to him playing, because I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but Dallas Goedert is like the main poacher of targets from AJ Brown. When he's on the field, he's the one who Jalen Hurts likes to go to. I'm going to say the Eagles win. I'm hoping that Friday was the start, not the start of the downfall. I don't wish ill on the Chiefs, but the start of, okay, maybe the Chiefs are done, and particularly without Worthy, who I think is very, very, very good. I just don't see how the Chiefs put up 31 points. And now I said this, Pacheco is going to have the game of his life. And they'll rock up 40 points and I'll look like an idiot, which is great because I can clip that and put it on all social media. The only other game I just wanted to talk about, because I wonder if you think about sort of revenge games, DK Metcalf, his first game in Pittsburgh for the Steelers, they welcome the Seahawks to town. That's going to be a great one, I think, to watch. I still think DK Metcalf's, I don't think he's lost a step. I think he's brilliant. Do you think DK gets his revenge over his old team?
I'm not convinced by the Steelers' defense at this point, especially how the Jets just seem to be having their way with them, especially going deep as well. Do you know? Do you know what? One thing about the Steelers, one thing about the Seahawks is I think their defense again looks under Mike McDonald. That's what you expect. We're not going back to prime Legion of Boom here, but this still going to be really, really solid. I'm a big fan of Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he's really, really underrated as a wide receiver one. This is Sam Darnold's test, isn't it? He's going to go into a hostile situation at Pittsburgh. Is he going to be able to get his audibles right? Is he going to be able to read the field, go through his motions, go through his reads? However, if the Seahawks are going to be able to run the ball like the Jets did on the Steelers defense on the weekend, I genuinely see them going in and stealing this one, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. I was looking at the odds as well. One of the Cowboys writer for the HuddleUK website has got his own podcast called Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. And they often ask guests for their underdog of the week. And I was looking through sort of all the spreads. And Guto, you'll be pleased to know, if I was on their podcast, I think the team that I fancy to beat the spread this week is the Falcons. The Vikings are 3.5-point favourites in this one. But with Mooney back, Bijan looking great, Drake London fit. Are you feeling, you said right at the top, you touched on the game, you said that you're feeling reasonably confident going into it. Do you think you can, well, technically it would be an upset. Do you think you can get the better of the NFC's best player in week one, JJ McCarthy?
I think there is a scenario when the Falcons do win, and I might just be biased. So we've got all of our offensive players fit and ready. Obviously the worrying thing is obviously how good JJ McCarthy is going to be, if he's going to turn up from the first quarter or if he'll just turn to prime Tom Brady in the fourth. Obviously you've got Justin Jefferson as well. So, but I am fairly confident that we could get a win in this game. Like I said before the Bucs game, even if we did end up losing that game, I just want to see a decent performance. And apart from that last kick from Younghoe Koo, we did really well. I thought we did really well without Darnell Mooney as well, our second wide receiver. So, but yeah, I think there can be a scenario when the Falcons do win this game. I think it'll be close. It will be a close game. But I can see us scraping this one.
And the same question to you, Dyfed, but for the Dolphins game. I'm trying to see what the spread is on this one, but it's the Dolphins are the favourites. Dolphins are 1.5-point favourites in this one against Patriots. And the Patriots, they didn't look great in week one when they lost to the Raiders. Again, our Patriots writer, Johnny Dudley, was a bit, not scathing of Drake May, but was a bit concerned with Drake May because this was meant to be the year he had a few weapons around him. Kayshon Boutte looked excellent. I mean, LSU was just the college that pumps out wide receivers for fun. Yeah. And he was meant to be that guy when he came into the league. He looked excellent on Sunday. I just think with the Dolphins secondary as bad as it is, players having team meetings, even at 1.5-point favourites, you can't ever feel confident going into a game, can you?
No, especially after such an embarrassing display where not even I wouldn't say a single room turned up. And a lot of the Dolphins fans have been hoping that especially this pass rush with Chubb, Jalen Phillips, now that they're back, Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, who's just been paid as well, that it was going to be hopefully a top 5 unit, but they were completely nullified by the Colts O-line The only thing that I'd say about the Patriots is, I've heard a lot of beat writers in New England talking about people are getting really, really worried about Drake May's his accuracy or lack of accuracy. Again, you have to question, their wide receiver room outside of Booty as well. Couldn't seem to run the ball. Obviously, we have no idea what's going on with Christian Gonzalez. He's been out with a hamstring injury for 6-7 weeks. I think he's had a few DNPs this week, so I don't think he's going to be playing. Another big loss for them would be as well, who's on the injury report, is Harold Landry, the linebacker. He was a DNP as well. So if he's out as well, and he got 2 sacks on the weekend, I think, as well. So
2.5, yeah, he led the NFL in week 1.
Yeah. So hopefully, if he's not there, I'd hope the Dolphins to run the ball significantly behind our center, basically in the A gaps. If the Dolphins are going to win at all at the moment, it's not through the air, because unfortunately, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Atua, they're just not on the same they're not on the same wavelength at the moment. Tyreek was injured all off season. It clearly shows that they haven't had any they haven't had time to regain that chemistry than they once had 2 years ago. Jalen Waddle is limited as well with a shoulder injury. If the Dolphins are going to win, it's going to be with him running the ball. With Achan. Achan was probably the only decent player on the weekend. So it's still hard for me to say that I think the Dolphins will win, but ultimately, if you look at the Patriots as well, I'd see there's a possibility of the Dolphins scraping this one.
Scraping, and that's why they're 1.5 point favorites. My favourite stat line from week 1, I'm not sure if either of you two saw this, but it was Demario Douglas, or Pop Douglas as he goes for the New England Patriots, had 7 targets, 2 catches for -2 yards, but a touchdown. So he technically had a net yardage of backwards, but scored. So I don't think I remember a few years ago, Mike Evans had 3 catches for 3 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that was quite something. But yeah, negative net yards and a touchdown is an interesting one. Well, it was a bit like the Bengals, wasn't it? They set the NFL record, well, not a wanted one, but -18 yards in the fourth quarter of their game, which was the lowest ever in the fourth quarter of a game, which, again, when you think of the players on that team, it is a head scratcher. Just for I'll let you guys go and enjoy what's left of the Friday night as we're recording this. We put out some calls for a couple of questions, see if anyone wanted to have their question, and we have had 2. The first one is a game I've tried to avoid talking about, so we can ask it here. It's from over on Twitter, or X, Pondside Panthers has asked the question: do you think the Panthers can get back to how they were playing at the back end of last season this weekend against Arizona? I said it very briefly. I like Bryce Young. He's small, and people laugh that he can't see over the O-line, but I like Ted McMillan. I like Bryce Young. I think Adam Thielen is a bigger loss than they would care to admit. Do I think they can get back to how they were at the end of last year? Maybe not that good, but I think they can improve on week 1.
Yeah, I do think so as well. Quick fact as well about this game, Panthers and Cardinals. You mentioned Bryce Young. He's the shortest quarterback in the NFL. He's going up against the tallest defensive player in the NFL, in Calais Campbell.
Oh, great.
So,
your answer there, sorry, Pondside Panthers, the answer is no.
No.
Is Bryce, did you say Bryce is the smallest quarterback in the NFL?
Yes, 5'10".
Where's Kyler Murray?
I was going to say Kyler Murray must be close or nearby.
No, this is according to NFL on CBS.
NFL quarterbacks quite high. David, I'll ask you while I look it up. Do you?
Yeah.
What's your take on the Panthers this year? It wasn't a good first game, admittedly. No. But do you think that there was obviously scope for improvement? But do you see it happening this weekend?
I completely agree about Adam Thielen. He's obviously a massive loss for them. I remember when he played the Dolphins, he absolutely tore us up for 120 yards. I really like Chuba Hubbard as a running back as well. So obviously the more that they can run the ball, I'm not sure if I trust their O-line at the moment, but the more that they can run the ball, the less pressure there's going to be on Bryce to make. Because the thing that gets me about Bryce Young is he comes out with some of the most outrageous throws sometimes, but he just lacks that consistency. And obviously, I think Ted McMillan, give him a month or so, I think he's going to look like the real deal. So I think once they get on the same wavelength, personally, I don't see them going out to Glendale to beat Arizona. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's a real problem. Kyler Murray on his day, especially if he starts scrambling, is a really, really tricky quarterback to handle, especially as a linebacker core, and if you're trying to spy on him as well, because with his legs he can do a lot of damage. This just screams out a low scoring game for me, but ultimately I think the Panthers will be there. I just don't see them winning in week 2.
Bryce Young, smallest quarterback in the NFL at 5'10". Kyler Murray, second smallest quarterback in the NFL at 5'10" and a quarter, let's say.
Oh, okay.
Yes, our brains went to the exact same point and we're spot on. It is the battle of the two smallest quarterbacks in Glendale this weekend. That's a nice little title for the website that we'll be definitely using. Do you wish to hazard a guess if we in quiz mode of who the tallest are? So there are 3 6'6" quarterbacks starters.
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert's one, yeah.
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco, very good. 2.
Yeah.
And the third one.
Josh Allen.
No, that's where I would have gone, but no, not Josh Allen. He is someone who, his name has been mentioned on this podcast so far, was meant to be the next big thing.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, yes.
Oh,
is
yes.
the other of these 6'6". So Trevor Lawrence, Joe Flacco's a great pull. I don't think I would have got that at 6'6". And Justin Herbert, yeah. And the second question, which has come in from our Bills writer, Jake Tumian, who's a friend of mine as well. And I know why he's asked this, because he's Welsh and he knows you boys, the NFL Cymru. He's asked how realistic do we think it is of Cardiff getting an NFL game at some point in the future, and is the airport situation a major issue? For those of you who don't know the area of Cardiff very well, there is a Cardiff airport. It's not particularly near to the city centre. It's closer to where I am in Gavin and Staceyville over in Barry, and it's a tiny airport. We have about 7 flights leave there in a day, and they're all to places you don't want to go. So it's not a particularly attractive airport. Very few flights come in, and it's a very good point, isn't it? Because as a major city, the transport there is what the NFL would be looking for. I don't think there's any doubt the stadium's good enough. Anyone who's ever come to the Millet or the Principality Stadium would tell you it's one of the best stadiums in the UK. Before we get on to can it would be amazing, wouldn't it?
It's the dream. That's the dream. That's our mission, me and Dev's mission with this podcast. Not just obviously have a game in Cardiff. That would be obviously the pinnacle, but it's just to grow the game here in Wales. So obviously, Louis Rizame did play a little bit of part in that. He's obviously the first Welsh person to actually go into NFL. Didn't work out. We'll talk about that for another podcast. But having a game in Cardiff in the Millennium Stadium, Principality Stadium, for me, that's the dream.
The big question for me is, we unfortunately Cardiff don't have the infrastructure like you were saying in terms of transport links at the moment.
Yeah,
they have been building especially over the last decade, because ultimately we have seen Champions League finals, World Cup finals held at the Principality. Yeah. However, if an NFL game would come to Cardiff, I think we're talking about, even Champions League, potentially we're looking at a different scale in terms of, because as the one thing that I love, especially because I was fortunate 2 years ago to go to Germany to one of the international games, the NFL is more of it's a package. It's a weekend. So, you've got fan zones everywhere. And I know that they did this with the Champions League final and, the Heineken Cup final if you're into rugby as well. But I think the NFL is on a different league in terms of, the amount of overseas fans that would come into Cardiff as well. Obviously, they've been building they're trying to find as many pockets, to find as many hotels. The amount of hotels that have been built in Cardiff over the last 5 or 10 years has been incredible. Like I said, the infrastructure isn't quite there. Like Guto said, the stadium is undoubtedly perfect for an NFL game. We've got the roof there. It's a rugby stadium. It's going to make an incredible sound. But obviously, I'd say come back to me in maybe 10 years to see. Now that Dublin's got their first game coming up very, very shortly, I'd love to think that Wales would potentially either put a pitch out there or, give it a good 10 years and maybe we might see a possibility.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Just to get your point, I'm sure it's come up on your podcast, but you just said there, Guto, that Rhys Salmon was the first Welsh NFL player. Not technically correct.
Yeah, no,
Not technically correct.
I need to correct myself on that.
Bonus points to anyone who got the name Alan Watson from the 1960s, who was born in Newport and went to Blackwood High School, but he was a part of the Cowboys and the Steelers. There's a random bit of Welsh trivia to finish it off. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining. It's nice to have a taste of home as a Welshman. Of course, if you're listening to this, you don't have to be Welsh to follow the HuddleUK podcast or even follow NFL Cymru. Make sure you go and give those guys, I believe on most of your socials, it's at NFL Cymru Pod.
NFL Cymru Pod. Yes. YouTube is podcast NFL Cymru.
There we are. See, it's so hard to find them. We're at Join the Huddle UK on most things. Over on YouTube, though, we've got it spot on just as Huddle UK. Make sure to go follow the guys. Make sure to go follow us. Click the subscribe button on both of the YouTube channels. We've got all the online content, every single team, except for a Texans fan. If you're a Texans fan listening and want to join the Huddle, be part of our writing team, you're the only unrepresented team so far. So we have a dedicated writer for all 31 other teams who've all had their thoughts up from week 1 and week 2. So plenty of stuff to go read on the website. Clips from this podcast will be available. Before we let you go, we have to talk fantasy football and once again talk about FantasyGameday.App, one of the partners here with HuddleUK. Week 1 was a great week. We're joined by Gurmeet, again, one of the co-founders of FantasyGameday.App. What a weekend for you guys.
It was great. We got off to a flying start. The most lineups entered onto the app ever since we launched in September 2023. So we're really pleased and we're looking forward to hopefully seeing that number rise even higher this weekend.
It was a great weekend for you, less so my teams. I was very pro. Well, I think I even tweeted about it. I was pro Browns at one point. I said the Bengals defense, they don't have anything. So I went for a Flacco Judy stack. Nobody told me I needed to put the tight end Harold Fanning in. That was apparently the move. Who knew? That certainly not me. There were so many busts this week, though, weren't there, in terms of fantasy? I imagine one of the winning teams must have had some really rogue or surprise choices in there.
Yeah, well, I think one thing we've seen in previous seasons is superstars getting huge points, especially in Sunday Stars where the captain gets double. So we were seeing, I think week 1 of last season, people score, an NFL player scoring 55, 60 captain points. Didn't happen week 1. Some huge names were real busts. The winning team, and if you look at, I've list some of the players, Bijan Robinson was captain. This is the highest score of last week in Sunday Stars. But then when you look through the rest of the lineup, none of them went massively crazy on the scores. It was Daniel Jones, fantastic 30 points. But then Chuba, Jalen Warren, JSN, the rookie from Tampa Bay, Egbuka, Brock Bowers and Warren, the tight end from the Colts. These guys were all just middling at 15 points. There wasn't any craziness happening. So, long may that continue. I love it. I love seeing small differences between the players. But yeah, it was a great week 1. And week 2, there's some interesting lines developing again.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. I mean, it still surprises me that Daniel Jones was in the winning team. I know we've wrote about it on the HuddleUK website and I've put about it on social media. What a game he had. That came out of nowhere, really.
I feel like an absolute fool because I was on another podcast and they asked me for one of my predictions, and that was that the Dolphins would beat the Colts. And I'm not going to put my faith in Daniel Jones week 1. And boy, do I feel silly now.
I don't think you were the only one. I'm sure you weren't. And last night, again, I put on the HuddleUK social media. I knew that I had a feeling one of the Green Bay Packers wide receivers on Thursday Night Football even was going to have a big game. It turns out it was Romeo Dobbs. I went for Jayden Reed, who got injured on his first. It would have been an amazing catch and an amazing touchdown if it wasn't for the holding, and of course broke his shoulder, his collarbone. So devastating for him. It's been a really bad start to my predictions. Tucker Kraft was in my other team. At one point, I thought he was going to carry me through.
I was about to say the wide receiver 1 for the Packers is Tucker Kraft at the moment, it seems.
Evidently so. I mean, what a game he had on
He looked
Thursday night.
amazing. He looked
Incredible.
incredible. He looked like, McBride and Bowers, that type of elite tight end. So, keep an eye on his prices on our app.
I was just going to say that I imagine he'll be slightly more next week. This
Yeah.
week, I know you don't have in terms of sort of like percentages, but who are I imagine, again, it's going to be your Bijans, your Chases, who are at the top of the market on Sunday.
Yeah, so number one of all is Jahmyr Gibbs, actually, and Derrick Henry. Henry, just, the guy is incredible. Every season we think that he'll slow down, but no, there he is this week, the second most expensive player. There's a few. I don't know if you want me to get into it, but there's
Yeah, I was going to say,
few.
who, because last week you said to me, or before the first week, you said that Travis Kelce was a value. I told you that I really hoped he wasn't. He saved the day with his long touchdown, but yes. That's fine. That's my one moment. I'll take the Chargers hat off. Yes.
The Chargers looked awesome. Justin Herbert looked awesome. My defense with Kelce, I think, if you're going to spend £4,000 on a player in DFS and he scores a touchdown like Kelce did and gets that number of points, I think you should be pretty happy with that, right?
You are pretty happy. It wasn't a bad pick by you by any means, and not suggesting that it wasn't the best pick, but it wasn't an awful pick.
It was fine.
Nobody would have said Daniel Jones and Quentin Johnston was the way to go week one. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Who are your put your money where your mouth is then in terms of who you think are the values on your app this weekend?
I'm just having a glance over at some notes I made. Look, I know the San Francisco are struggling. Purdy's out, Kittle's out, but McCaffrey is 6,200. When you think that Gibbs and Derrick Henry are above 9,000, even with Mac Jones under center, that seems like decent value to me. So that's running back. Also, another running back I'd have my eye on is ETN for the Jags. I'm sure everyone's aware that Tank Bigsby's been traded to the Eagles. Seems to me that is the NFL telling us that ETN could get a decent workload. He's priced at 3,600, and again, I think in DFS, you've got to manage your expectations of how many points you think these guys are going to get you. And if £5,000 is our average for a player on Sunday Stars, and you've got ETN at 3,600, if he gets you double-digit fantasy points, that's good going. So I think those two are good plays this week at running back. If you want some wide receivers, I've got some of those too, but that's up to you.
Well, I'll just interject there because I know the Jaguars are playing the Bengals, aren't they, this weekend? And that's the reason I went for the Brown stack as a risky week one option. So, yeah, I think ETN could be a great one. I think I've got a lot of belief in just sort of following on from Bucky Irvin last year, where Liam Cohen drafted a third-day wide receiver who was a physical freak and then integrated him in within a few weeks. I think Bashal Tutin, there will be a week, maybe not this week, but in the next 3 or 4 weeks where he will be very low down in your price range. And if you put him in your flex and you catch that week where he goes off, I think there will be a week. I'm not saying to do it this week. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying there will be one.
And that's what it's all about, is getting that player in your lineup before we raise his price, much like the stock market. So
yeah, if anything, you're the enemy here, aren't you? You're trying to make life difficult for us. Yeah,
look, it's all about responding to a player's run of form, the ease of the opponent, competition for touches. That's all baked into the price of a player. So yeah, he's at the moment he's not really on the. He's not high price running back, but yeah, it can change over 1 week. You see one of these guys light up 1 week, and it all changes.
Who are your wide receiver picks then for the week?
So just before we started recording, Dallas Goedert's been ruled out for the Eagles. I've noticed, I'm definitely not the only one who's noticed, that when Goddard plays, he eats into AJ Brown and Devonta Smith's target share. Saquon's just so fantastic that they don't need AJ Brown as much, but playing the Chiefs, surely they're going to need to throw. AJ Brown is 4,800. Again, looking at the fact that 5,000 is our average, AJ Brown 4,800 seems like good value. And another big-bodied wide receiver from the same draft class, I believe, wasn't it, as AJ Brown? DK Metcalf, he was looking good last week. I'm a Jets fan, so I had a close eye on that game. And, there's not much target competition for Aaron Rodgers. We know that Rodgers likes to hyper-target his alpha receiver. DK Metcalf, £5,000. Those two are, two of the best athletes in the NFL. Got a bet on that quality.
I might have to follow suit and listen to you this week because as I said, I was very, very off the mark last Sunday. Fingers crossed it'll be a good week. If you are listening to this and you haven't got over to FantasyGameday.App, please do. It's a fantastic app, and I've seen loads of rave reviews over on social media this week. If you sign up using the code HuddleUK, that's HUDUK, you get a free £7.50 after you've set your first lineup. We did forget to mention, obviously, last time, it is obviously 18 over. I did put that on social media. It is obviously for adults only. I'll just give you, who would you give your one tight end that you'd throw in this week as well, just to close it off? I think mine's Tyler Warren, because I just think he looks like the number one target.
These rookie tight ends, we've been spoiled the last few years.
Yeah, Laporta, Bowers, and now, Loveland didn't get off to a great start, but Fannin and Tyler Warren certainly did. Gurmeet, thank you very much for joining. Go over to FantasyGameday.App, enjoy yourself and gamble responsibly, please.
And if I can say one thing on the theme of 18 plus and UK only, is also, if you're trying to access the app, please make sure that your VPN's turned off. I've had a few questions as to I can't log in. We're very strict with VPNs. If your phone's running one, you cannot access the app. So please make sure you're not using a VPN in the UK.
Very good advice. Thankfully, that hasn't caught me out. But yes, Gurmeet, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. And again, thank you to the guys from NFL Cymru for joining us for the rest of this podcast episode. As always, I've been the host, Philip Marsh. Good luck for your teams on the weekend. Hopefully, you'll be going 2-0, much like the Chargers will be on Monday Night Football. Fingers crossed. We'll catch you all next week on the next episode of the Huddle UK podcast.